from LPI Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. It's R&R on Sports with Uncle Howard, Howard Robertson.
You will only see Tony Romo this season if something happens to Dak Prescott.
Jennifer Conroy.
There are less pieces on the Raiders. There's been the move, and the whole culture has kind of had to shift into LA out of St. Louis.
And the magnificent Larry Robinson.
I think this whole concept of college football playoffs is an absolute travesty.
It's R&R on Sports.
Hello and welcome to a little R&R on Sports. I'm Uncle Howard.
And I'm Jennifer Conroy.
And I am the awesome, the fantastic, the amazing, the magnificent Larry Robinson. What's up, America?
The far too long, the knuckleheadedness.
Man, I'm tired. I'm tired of both of you two. Now listen, I got applications.
Today they have been
Facebook.
More than ample.
I got applications
references
from last
to
week.
your head.
Last week I asked for applications.
You got some feelings hurt.
I got applications, so just keep on.
Okay, and our interviews coming
the
up.
darkest snowflake ever.
Have them.
I'm tired of y'all, man. I'm tired of dealing with y'all.
That's why
too.
you can't sit with us.
Well, I don't want to sit with y'all
Well,
either.
you can't sit with us. You're over there.
See, I have to put a wall between. I'm gonna be like Donald. I'm gonna put a wall between us.
Jennifer and
Like
I can
Donald.
leave right now.
Like
we
Donald
can leave
Duck?
right now. As a matter of fact, say one
Like
more
John
thing.
Don. John. Right?
What's going on, y'all? Y'all watch Super Bowl?
Yes.
Oh man, listen, I feel for the Atlanta Hawks,
I don't.
Falcons fans. The Atlanta Hawks too, for that matter.
Yeah.
But I feel for the Falcons fans.
Yeah.
Now they know how Cowboys fans feel.
Now, I wonder if the 49ers can take back their offer to Kyle Shanahan
I don't think
for
so.
doing one of the dumbest, having the most dumbest series of play calling.
You need
That
to
was
go
a
for
bad-
I want to talk about that when we come back. You need to go for what you know, though.
Yeah.
But offshoot of that is there will be some Patriots, all African American, that will not be making the trip to Washington to meet and greet the president
Thinking the white guys
of the
won't go?
United States. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So far, it's Chris Long, Martellus Bennett, Dante Hightower.
Okay.
And
So the list is growing.
Devin McCourty.
Devin McCourty. Okay.
And they are, for those of you who don't know, they have decided that opted not to join the team to go
to the White House to see
visit President Trump.
So would you go? Would you
No.
Would you go?
No,
You wouldn't?
absolutely not.
All right. What about you, Howard? Would you go?
I think I could find something else to do.
Really?
I would end up in a
I think
car
I could
with
find
flashy
something
lights.
else to do that day.
You know what? I'd go so I could mush his head like Charles Oakley did the security guard at MSG. He put his finger like on his head, like, get off me. And I was like,
man,
golly.
wasn't that ugly?
That was ugly.
That was ugly.
That was very
That was
disrespectful.
ugly, and it is evidence of the mess and the dysfunction that is now the New York Knicks organization.
Oh, you know what? We have a white guy not going to the White House
Who
for
is it?
Patriots.
Who is it?
His name is Chris Long.
Oh, Chris. I mentioned Chris.
Did you say him?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not
Yeah,
know Chris
yeah.
was a Caucasian.
Yeah.
Okay, you see that alliteration?
But you said all
see that
black.
alliteration?
A Caucasian cat.
Yeah,
Is that what
Caucasian
you
He's
said?
a Caucasian cat.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
I threw that in. You know, I'm pretty good.
But look,
for him.
Can you see somebody like Bill Walton, for example, getting treated like that at Madison Square Garden?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I don't think they would also have the challenges that Oakley has been known to be very, very outspoken. And, you know, like Jalen Rose called him, he's like the Debo of the NBA. And I don't know where the problem lies, but
Phil
the
Jackson.
fact that he was put that it was so demonstrative and things like that. I want to know what led to that moment.
We've got so much to talk about. We have got so much to talk about, but as you well know, before we talk, we laugh. And so stay with us and
I
be
laugh
with us
at
right
you.
after this.
This is Jeopardy! Today we have Al, a pharmaceutical rep from Louisville, Chris, a radio announcer from Memphis, and Regis A., retired CIA agent from Possum Booty.
Yeah, Mississippi.
Our Sports Jeopardy categories today are Dream Teams, Speed Demons, Pick Hits, and Same Name. Remember, your answer must be in the form of a question. We'll start with Chris.
Thank you. I'll take Speed Demons for 100.
Speed Demons for $100. The answer is the NFL player with the fastest 40 time ever in the NFL Combine. Regis.
Now, was that after the NFL Combine with the AFL?
No. Chris.
Who was Bo Jackson?
That is correct.
What the hell is he talking about? I'll take Speed Demons for 200.
Speed Demons for $200. The answer is he's the fastest in the world. Regis.
Any fool know that'd be Jesse Owens.
That's incorrect. Al?
Who is Usain Bolt?
That is correct.
Who the hell is Butane Coat?
I'll take Pick Hits for 200.
Pick Hits for $200. The answer is the teams that passed over Michael Jordan in the 1984 draft before he was picked by the Bulls. Regis.
That'd be everybody else.
Incorrect. Al.
Who were the Houston Rockets and the Portland Trail Blazers?
That is correct.
They ain't paying no attention to me whatsoever.
I'll take Same Name for 500, please.
Same name for $500. The answer is the same last name of 3 Heisman Trophy winners since 1974. Oh my God, Regis, did you just shoot a gun?
Sure did. My beeper ain't working. Y'all shut up. But I got the answer. I mean the question. What was Griffin?
That is correct. Thank you for tuning in to Jeopardy! The show will be taking a 2-week hiatus as we effect repairs on the ceiling of our studios, caused by the blast of a sawed-off shotgun. Paramedics will be standing outside the studio to tend to any wounds caused by falling ceiling tiles. Thank you for joining us.
R&R on Sports with iConversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch iConversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Katsukian Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is David West of the Golden State Warriors, and you're listening to R&R on Sports.
This here's a jam for all the fellas. Try to do what those ladies tell us. Get shot down because you're overzealous. Play hard to get females, get jealous.
And we are back. Hope you enjoyed that. So much to talk about. And we began to talk about the Super Bowl. We, no...
what are you saying,
secret,
man? You like
no
all
secret.
and
I
What's
was
going on?
pulling for the Falcons.
Yes.
And I, like other Falcon fans, I'm disappointed.
I
but
wonder
I think
what
they
was going
really
on.
let their fans down, and I put it at the feet of the coaches.
Oh, the coaches really. I got a new name for the coach of the Falcons. This is Dan Quinn, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Bad luck, schlep rock.
Ooh.
Wowzy, woo woo. For many people that don't know, that's from the old Flintstones cartoon. There was this guy that was always bad luck, and he was bad luck, schlep rock. Because Dan Quinn was a part of the same coaching crew with the Seahawks that decided to pass at the 1 yard line.
And not give it to beast mode.
And to be snake bitten twice by the Patriots has got to be really disappointing.
You would think that after being exposed to something, and that is the consequence of not going for what you know, as we used to say in the hood. You go for when you're a Danny, you got to finish the job, and you go for what you know. What you do know is running the ball takes time off the clock and gets you yards when you really didn't need yards or position, because all you needed to do was kick a field goal.
It requires them to call a timeout.
Absolutely.
It would have required the Patriots to call a timeout. I mean, this is ridiculous, man. I mean, this is
Kyle Shanahan. Who called that? The pass.
It's got to be Kyle Shanahan.
It's got to be Shanahan. Now, do you think the overtime rules and then NFL need to be changed? or kept the same?
I like it better than it was. Now they could do some more tweaking where the other team gets an opportunity to score.
Yeah,
very similar to what they do in college.
Yeah,
but I still say the fact that they went from the 25-yard line and went all the way down and scored on them. My thing is you deserve to lose. Especially the Falcons. They deserve to lose with the bonehead play calling that they experienced on that last sequence.
And it was such a dichotomy because Dan Quinn, he's a defensive guy. The defense was outstanding.
It just was on the field the whole show.
This kid, Jarrett, number 97, was giving Tom Brady fits.
Yeah,
but
they sacked him twice, which was more than he'd been sacked all year, I think.
But the fact is that the defense was on because you think about it, Atlanta didn't have that many plays. They were talking about the fact that Atlanta had very few plays considering the average of an offensive team during a full game. And I mean, the defense had to be on the field a very long time.
That's true. So Shanahan is now out.
And then when you look at overtime as well.
Right.
So you're talking about a defense that was dead tired.
And they had no clue they lost the game at the end of regulation.
Oh yeah.
Although the score was tied, Falcons were done.
Yeah.
They could have left and gone home and just given it to
I
them.
felt bad for Dwight Freeney because I thought he played excellent in a substitution role and coming in late in the season.
I agree.
I thought he played really well.
I didn't see what the anybody has seen what the ratings were?
Yeah, they were down.
Yeah.
They were down.
We're down. It was only, I think they said 111 million people viewed the game, which was down a little bit, especially from last year and the previous year.
Wow.
So
y'all like the political tone of the commercials?
I was very impressed with these corporations kind of making it known that they weren't in support of discrimination.
Yep.
And speaking of that, activism at a level, we talked about the Patriots that have opted out of going to the White House. Steph and his
Howard, I think you're an asset. You're an asset to this show, minus the ET.
I'm the ET. Well, you know what? You're the one that keeps saying that you're the extraterrestrial, so you're the ET part of the equation.
Absolutely.
I'm the it.
Yeah, you the it.
That's what it was the last time I checked. But yeah, Steph and Under Armour.
Steph had a challenge with Under Armour because Kevin Plank made the statement that Donald Trump was an asset to have a president that's business focused and business friendly. And Steph said, he was asked if he agreed with Kevin Plank's comment about Donald Trump being an asset, and he said, well, I believe, he's an asset minus the ET.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the fact that Steph Curry, someone who has not been open and outspoken as it relates to political issues, he's been very what would I say?
He's getting there.
He would say that he doesn't really make these kind of comments. I've never heard him make any kind of political statements.
No.
Now, if it would have come from LeBron, I would have said, hey, okay, that's LeBron. That's par for the course.
I think we're going to see more athletes being outspoken, and I think part of that will be based upon kind of the Steph Curry thing where it's tested temperature.
Is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's going to be an amazing thing, and I think that we saw it started with Kaepernick, and it's carried into the NBA with LeBron, and I really think that we're going to begin having conversations that are going to make people very uncomfortable. But they've got to be had.
Do you see the players in the NBA visiting the White House? Being that the NBA is 90% or so Black African American.
No.
Howard? Do you see the players?
I think you're going to see the same dynamic that you're seeing with the African American players with the Patriots. I think many are going to sit out. I mean, because as we go on, by the time, imagine this. What we're talking about has happened in literally 3 weeks of a Trump presidency. Imagine the kinds of things that are going to transpire between now and the end of the basketball championship. They would conceivably have a lot more ammunition and reason.
But you've also had LeBron already saying he's not
to have
going.
Issues
You already have players coming out now, NBA players coming out now and saying, if we win, I'm not going. Yeah, LeBron has already straight out said, I'm not going. Part of the difference that we're seeing between the NFL and the NBA lies in coaches and seeing white coaches like Steve Kerr and Popovich and Van Gundy being very vocally active. And we didn't see any of that in the NFL from players or coaches.
You didn't see any coach say anything
Nothing.
in the NFL at all. Major League Baseball, all of them, none of them has said a thing.
But we do have 3 in the NBA who are beginning to really be very outspoken.
Now you do know,
and critical.
Now you do know that the backlash from this is the reality that you have somebody that is very, and I will say it, petty, that is sitting in the highest office in the land.
What would you think of Donald Trump's response?
Come back. I think you will get all kind of tweets. Yes, all kind of tweeted responses, like he just did with Nordstrom's not carrying his daughter's line.
And Nordstrom stock went up 4%. Since that tweet, in less than 24 hours, Nordstrom stock rose 4%.
Did you guys see the Sean Spicer, skit with McCarty on Saturday Night Live? Man, that was hilarious. I mean, I didn't know the guy had an affinity for bubblegum like that.
I didn't either. That was news to me.
And the fact that they're responding, what kind of White House is this? This is like unprecedented pettiness.
It is unprecedented.
That's what that is. But we have a fantastic conversation today. Duo, combo. And it's all about Negro League baseball. It's all about baseball. And today we have a continuation of the great interview with Reginald Howard.
Black History Month.
Absolutely. A Negro League historian. But we also have that coupled with somebody who spent about
they called him Poke Chop.
About 3 weeks in the Negro League. That would be Hammerin Hank, the legend Aaron. So Reggie Howard and Hank Aaron, our conversation right here, R&R on Sports.
So don't you stand there, bust the move. Just bust the move. Break it down for me, fellas.
Hey, this is Shaq Adocious, and when I'm in town, I'm always listening to Howard and Larry on R&R on Sports.
And we're back with our conversation, and today the image of the icon, as you will, is Negro League Baseball, and we're going to talk about some of the greatest players. We want to welcome back Mr. Reggie Howard. Welcome back to R&R on Sports.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back, of course.
What's up, Mr. Howard?
Homage is here.
You gonna tell us about all these great baseball players, right?
Well, we'll talk about a few.
Okay. All right. So here's the obvious question. Who are the greatest players in the history of Negro League Baseball, in your professional opinion?
In my opinion. And this is based on a lot of conversation with a lot of people over a lot of different years. The most outstanding player that you hear over and over was Oscar Charleston.
Oscar Charleston.
I've
never heard of that dude before.
We're sitting here looking.
I done heard Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige.
The great Oscar Charleston.
Talk about him.
Charleston
School America on who he was.
Charleston was an outfielder, great hitter, great defensive player. In essence, the older players would tell you that the closest thing to him, not as good as him, but the closest thing to him in contemporary times was Willie Mays.
Okay.
That's to give you some kind of idea.
Who did he play for?
Chicago American Giants. He started with them. He was there with when Uncle Jim not Uncle Jim, but Rube Foster.
Okay.
Was originally getting
so
going.
The factors that make you cite him as the greatest of all time.
People like my Uncle Mitch, my father Adolph, my Uncle Mitch was my biological uncle, and Candy Jim Taylor, Uncle Jim. We call him Uncle Jim. He's a manager of the Chicago American Giants.
Okay.
It was his brother that was with Rube Foster. His brother was with Rube Foster when they formed the Negro League in 1920.
Okay.
People like Buzz Clarkson, another outstanding player to play Negro League baseball.
What position did he play? Tell us about him.
Oscar Charleston mostly played outfield. He was a part of the 32-35 Crawford team that I had such a high regard for. He was a playing manager then. As he got older, he came in and played first base because he took on a lot of weight. And that was a club that had 5 Hall of Famers on it.
Okay.
I think if I didn't, I should have referred to. They had Charleston, Judy Johnson, William A. Cool Papa Bell, Satchel Paige, and Josh Gibson. There was 5 Hall of Famers on that team.
On that team?
On that one team, yeah.
Now, this is R&R on Sports, and we're speaking with Mr. Reginald Howard, baseball historian, about the Negro League. Mr. Howard, I want to know about Josh Gibson. I heard Josh Gibson was one of the meanest, toughest guys in the history of baseball, period. Can you give us some insight on him?
Well, the only thing I can tell you about him is from the eyes of a 10, 11-year-old boy. And he was jovial. People seemed to like him. People wanted to be in proximity with him, it seemed like all the time. Great hitter. But again, from the eyes of a 10, 11-year-old boy. There are some people who say Turkey Stern may have been just as powerful as him as far
Turkey Stern?
Yeah, another outfielder.
Oh, man. I mean, these are names that I've never heard of.
Well, I'll tell you, this is back a few years ago. And then, oh my goodness, don't let me forget Martin DeHingo. Martin DeHingo was.
Who is that?
Martin DeHingo. He's a Cuban. And he came to the Negro League in I don't know exactly the year, but he was 15 when he started. And the interesting thing happened, and I read it in a Memphis Flyer, and I almost fell down because it's about 20 years ago when I saw it. And the story was by Johnny Mize, the home run hitter Johnny Mize, who hit over 500 home runs in his career. He said that Martin DeHingo was the best ball player he'd ever seen. They had played together in the Winter League, I think it was in 45. Mize had been in the service and had been in the service for a couple of years, and he got out, and the parent team wanted him to rekindle his skills before the next season. So they sent him to the Dominican. And he was batting fourth behind Martin DeHingo. Before he got there, to use baseball terminology, they were going around him. In essence, they wouldn't give him nothing good to hit. They just walk him to give him. But when Mize got down there, they had to pitch to him because Mize was coming up behind him. And he said that Martin DeHingo was the best ball player he'd ever seen. Played all 9 positions. This is what really gets you. I would say he's the most versatile. Played all 9 positions. Outstanding pitcher, outstanding hitter, great hitter. And, if you look back in the, I believe it was 1935, he started in center field in the East-West All-Star game. And then he came in to pitch later on in that same game.
Now, most people would believe that Satchel Paige was the greatest of all time. Now, clear this up.
Greatest pitcher of all time?
Well, I think most people just on the surface would think of him as the greatest Negro League player of all time, which is my question. Did he just happen to have is he the most legendary? That's what I'm saying.
I think he was a legendary, and he was a great pitcher too, but he had longevity. I don't know what kind of arm he had, but he just went on and on and on.
How long did Satchel Paige pitch?
He must have pitched till, oh my goodness, I'm afraid to say. I really am. I'm afraid to say, but let's say a long time.
Ballpark. We talked about 20 years.
Because he actually didn't get called up. Didn't Satchel Paige get called up when he was 40?
42.
He got called up to Major League Baseball at 42 years old.
Yeah.
Were there players that were activists at the time and vocal? Because now we expect sports figures to be political and to have platforms and to be vocal. Were there players?
There were some, but it was very quiet. There were players that didn't like integration, didn't want any parts of it. Everyone wasn't crazy about that.
Yeah,
because they had a stage where they could practice and hone their skills, and everybody can see them. And not only that, and it was a dossier or a resume that they were building for winter ball, and they made more money a lot of times in winter leagues than they made in the Negro League in the States.
Were there ever issues with violence in terms of the money that was being made and players becoming very popular? Were there white people that took issue with the fact that the Negro League became so big?
Not to my knowledge. Let me factor this in here too for you about Satchel Paige. By playing 3 games a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's say Satchel pitched on Friday in Kansas City. Okay. Okay. You got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday he pitched again. That's his turn.
Okay.
But they're playing some high school team in Minot, North Dakota, or in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Well, they didn't use their good pitchers on those days.
Yeah.
He would lay out,
Right.
Well, what would happen a lot of times, a white team somewhere, say in Minnesota or in Michigan, or had a game that they wanted to win, they would hire Satchel. That's why I say he was a hired gun.
Wow.
So he would go there and pitch for them that day.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say that day was Wednesday when he pitched for them. Okay, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday's his turn to pitch again. You're right back in the league.
So he was a bit of a free agent.
So he was a guy who would go around the country to different teams, and he, as I say, he was a hired gun. People would hire him.
So Satchel made a lot of money then.
He made a lot of money that way, yeah.
This is R&R on Sports, and we're here speaking with baseball historian Mr. Reginald Howard.
Was he the highest paid Negro League player?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's why he gets. I mean, he worked a long time, longevity,
right?
And he was the most popular, and he got paid more.
And let me share this with you, as this factors into another area. I guess I hope it doesn't. In as much as when Satchel would go to those towns to play, this is in the late 30s now, early 40s, he would not stay anywhere but a 5-star hotel.
Really?
And he did not eat in the kitchen. He had the dining room.
How was?
And if they didn't have that type of facility for him, he would stay with some of the better people, in town.
Oh,
and stay with them. In other words,
wait a minute. We gotta understand
that was a part of him coming.
We gotta understand this. So you're saying that part of his deal, Satchel Paige's deal, is that he got to stay at a white hotel, a best segregated hotel, and eat in the dining room? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. If he didn't eat in the dining room, they fed him royally room service.
But he got to stay in the hotel when no other black people could.
Stay. No, that was a part of him coming.
So was that part of the mystique? Because
that was it.
Because of him, people would say, "Why?" First of all, who's this black guy at this all white hotel? First, secondly, that's Satchel Paige. So obviously he had to be great.
Right.
Would you say that?
Right.
So they would rest Jim Crow. They would push. They
keep Jim Crow locked up.
Jim Crow for Satchel Paige.
Jim Crow would go to bed that day.
Wow.
Wow. Wait a minute. One quick question that I got to ask you before the segment ends. Hank Aaron. It is always known that Hank Aaron started in the Negro League, but he made popularity playing in Major League Baseball.
Right.
For Milwaukee. How did he play? Did he play for a long time, and what was his reputation in the Negro League era?
He's a conundrum to me. I mean, this guy. How can a guy 18 years old do like he did? He was absolutely fabulous as a player.
And we're going to have to put a period there for the time being. We've got so much more to talk about on future segments. And we will be back with more R&R on Sports right after this.
We're back with a little R&R on sports. Today is a special day. We have what the epitome of icon. We have Hammerin, Hank Aaron, one Hall of Famer, home run champion, and everything. Mr. Aaron, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm feeling fine. I really am. I feel like I'm very fortunate. I had a little trouble with my knee and leg, but and also my hip. But other than that, I feel very well. I feel fine. I feel like I'm lucky. I'm here to talk to you guys this afternoon, and I just feel like I'm very excited about it.
And we're glad to have you. We're so tremendously thrilled to have you. I'm going to start off. We like to get into the personal aspect of a career, and I read somewhere that you've been playing baseball for money since a very young age, where I think I read you were getting paid $3 a game or something like that. Talk to us about that time of your life and how it was then, and tell us if you ever thought about doing anything else.
Well, first of all, you've given me a raise. $3.
Oh, really?
The most money, yeah. And thanks for it, but I never saw it.
How much was it?
$2.
$2 a game.
Wow. But I suppose you look at life and you say you have to put something in to get something out of it.
Right.
So, in the time when I played, of course, money was not the most exciting thing, but just having the idea to let people know that if given the opportunity, you wanted the playing field to be the same for you as it was for your white friends.
Right. Now,
and
back
that was
then,
more important to me at the moment than the extra dollar.
Back then, $2 a day wasn't too bad in terms of money, was it?
Oh, no question about it. You're absolutely right. $3 a day, $2 a day, or any kind of money for that matter was better than nothing, And you're absolutely right. $2 a day was more than I had ever made in my entire life. So I felt like I was very privileged and very honored to have the honor to make that kind of money.
And I think I read also that you had to play on the weekends because your mom didn't want something about you had to play on the weekends because you didn't want to get interrupted. I guess school wasn't going on. It was summertime, wasn't it?
Well, you're right. My mother was not, because that was absolutely nothing that says that if you had a career that you were going to go into professional baseball. So she was not looking at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
She was looking at it from the standpoint of saying, she would like for her son to go to school and go to college and get some kind of degree so he can make a living.
Right.
And that was so true. And it was just so happened that I got extremely lucky to play a little bit of baseball when I was in high school. And, of course, when I got out of high school, I was able to go and play with the Indianapolis Clowns of the Negro League. And after that, I got to the major leagues quite really quickly, much quicker than the average person. But, it was just not that many things back then when I was growing up that blacks had an opportunity to do. Let's face it, most of us were either school teachers or we didn't do anything,
Right.
Baseball and sports was not something that we could look forward to.
Right. I think that one misperception that I think people have about you is that you spent years in the Negro Leagues. Tell them how long you were in the Negro Leagues.
No, I was lucky. I didn't spend a year in the Negro League.
Wow.
But I was fortunate enough to know what it was about.
Mm-hmm.
I played only a half a year with the Indianapolis Clowns of the Negro League, And then I got scouted by, that was when there was all teams, all major league teams was really just pulling, not pulling, but they were just going to these leagues and getting most of the Negro League players to come and start playing professional baseball. This was all happened after Jackie Robinson, of course, had broken the line. But I was lucky enough to spend not very long in the Negro League, and I stayed there. But I learned an awful lot just the little time I was in the league.
Now, Larry's going to ask you a question, but I got to say this. You were signed on June 14th, 1952 by the Braves, and they bought your contract from the Indianapolis Clowns for $10,000. That was exactly 7 days after I was born. I was born on June 7th, 1952. So I gotta say that.
Okay, all right.
Well, Mr. Aaron,
well, you know, and I think back then, you just mentioned the year in which I signed a professional contract, but you know, back then, you have to remember that. And I said this repeatedly, that there wasn't many things that we could do, you know. But I played baseball, and I played it very well, and along came, of course, the years that I played it, along came quite a few ball players. You know, you had Ernie Banks, you had Willie Mays, you had all kinds of ball players that come up. And all these players in which I was able to come through and play with, all of them are now in the Hall of Fame.
Right, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Well, and just think that even years before then, that if you talk about people like Josh Gibson, Leroy Satchel Paige, and all these other great players that didn't have an opportunity to play, what they could have done in the league if given the same opportunity that we were given.
Mm-hmm.
So we felt like we were very fortunate, but we still had some things to do. You know, Jackie had opened up the avenue for us, and we had to shoulder the responsibility of continuing to let people know that if given the same opportunity, that we could do the same thing as our white brothers.
Right. Well, we all know you as the Hammer, Hammerin Hank, but there was a nickname before all of that, and it was Pork Chops. Can you tell the listeners why you were called Pork Chops?
Well, the reason for that is because when I first signed my contract with the Indianapolis Clowns, there was a friend of mine named Jenkins. And coming from Mobile, you know, you didn't get but $2 a day meal money.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have that much to buy. So in order for me to have a piece of meat, pork chop was the easiest thing in the world for me to get in. So I just every day would eat a piece of pork chop. So they just started calling me Pork Chop. You know, so I couldn't order a steak. I couldn't order a ham. I couldn't order anything. And pork chop was probably one of the easiest piece of meat that I could order and be able to have 15 more cents in my pocket.
Well, let me ask you another question, Mr. Aaron. When you we're looking at the whole stratosphere of great players during that era, who was the one person that you were most impressed with, of course, outside of yourself?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your question.
Okay, I said when you look at the whole stratosphere of great players during that time, during that era, who was the one player that really stood out to you as being a fantastic and amazing athlete?
Well, you know, and that's a very good question, really, and I just wish that I had a solid answer for you. I would answer your question this way, is that you look at certain ball players and you say, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, all of these players that I mentioned, Mays and Banks and on and on and on, all these players are in the Hall of Fame. And they didn't just give us the Hall of Fame. We had to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start talking about who was greater and who was better and which one you looked up to, I think you kind of looked up to all of them because everybody had a different agenda. They had a different thing to look at, really. So I would say that, you look at Ernie Banks, and he did great things in Chicago that nobody else could do. Then you look at the Giants, and you knew Willie Mays did great things with San Francisco, with New York and San Francisco. So it was just great ball players all the way around. But the most amazing thing about all of that was the fact that we always got together. And when I say got together, we always talked to each other, If I was in New York, I had a chance to sit and talk with Willie. If I was in Chicago, I had a chance to talk to Ernie Banks. So we always compared notes, and we knew exactly what we had to do in order to continue for people to admire what we were doing.
You mentioned earlier the great Jackie Robinson. What was your relationship like with him?
Well, I knew Jackie very well, and I was fortunate enough to play against him before he passed away. Jackie was a tremendous athlete, not only in baseball, but he also excelled in football,
right,
in college.
Right.
But he had more than just football skills or baseball skills. He had human being skills. He had skills that he got along with people very well.
Mm-hmm.
But my relationship with Jackie Robinson is that he always would sit and talk, not just talk with you, but he would always, if you asked him a question, he would always tell you, said, you put into anything what you get out of it. When you go to play baseball, try to play it as hard as you possibly can, and you'll find out that you can get most things out of it.
This is part one of our exclusive two-part interview with Hammerin Hank Aaron. Hope you will tune in next week for part two, and we'll be right back to a little R&R on sports right after this.
R&R on Sports with iConversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch iConversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Katsukian Network.
Rolling down the street with my radio on, listen to Funky Politics.
The mayor of the city of Memphis, Mayor Jim Strickland. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. We keep it real, we keep it right, and we keep it funky.
4 o'clock, WDIA.
Funky Politics, part of the Katsukian Network.
Hey, this is Dr. J.
Hi, this is Rika Ketchum.
This is John Hollinger, Vice President of Basketball Operations for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Tim Brown, NFL Hall of Fame inductee. You are listening to R&R on Sports.
iConversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch iConversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Katsukian Network.
Rolling down the street with my radio on, listen to Funky Politics.
The mayor of the city of Memphis, Mayor Jim Strickland. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. We keep it real, we keep it right, and we keep it funky.
4 o'clock, WDIA.
Funky Politics, part of the Katsukian Network.
Hey, this is Dr. J.
Hi, this is Rika Ketchum.
This is John Hollinger, Vice President of Basketball Operations for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Tim Brown, NFL Hall of Fame inductee. You are listening to R&R on Sports.
And now it is time for us really to say goodbye and start packing up our stuff
y'all.
to get out of here.
See ya. Sayonara.
Shout outs. Who you got?
I'm going to shout out New Orleans because they had a tornado that did some damage, and I'd like to see them recover and recover well.
Yes.
That city has been through enough.
Yes, and they said in a lot of ways that was more devastating than Katrina because Katrina, you got advance notices, so you could do something. This just blew up, and it was major.
And it wasn't just New Orleans. It was a good portion of Louisiana. So you are in our thoughts and in our prayers.
Yeah, and for those of you who aren't familiar with tornadoes, tornadoes are devastating to low-lying areas.
Yes.
And you can't get more low-lying than
New Orleans. No, you can't.
Third ward?
I think so.
Yeah, in New Orleans. Larry, who you got?
I'm gonna shout out Satchel Paige and the Paige family, inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. You know, I think it says a lot. The Negro League, and somebody who has really done a lot to make sure that the Negro League stayed prevalent and was so successful, and then made the jump to the Major League Baseball at the advanced age of like 44.
Right.
Love that.
Yeah. He was.
So I mean,
he was a senior.
For him to be that age and still had played for so long, and then be able to play Major League Baseball and be effective, I thought it said a lot about him, and I'm glad he's made it to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
I want to take this time and liberty to shout out a guy you guys might have heard of. Cat's name is Roger Goodell. Raj, let me holler at you, bro. Listen, I wanna compliment you for being a man. I know you would have rather been locked up with a brother in prison named Tank. In the same cell than to have to do what you did, but you did it, man.
It's hard to shake a white man's hand.
You know, they booed you. I thought that was low down, but
man, they booed him.
They booed him a lot.
I just want to, you get my shout out, and we're going to call you out and ask you to please subscribe and rate R&R on Sports, and be with us next week when we'll be back, same place, same time. In the meantime, R&R is out.
Peace.
R&R on Sports is recorded live at LPI Studios in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee. Web designer Daniel Coates, executive producer Larry Robinson, written by Howard Robertson, and produced by Reggie Fine. R&R on Sports, part of the Kutsukian Network.